Happy Tuesday, everyone. Happy Tuesday. My name is Juanita Williams. I am a purpose conduit. I am the link to life beyond pain and the channel to discovering purpose. And this is today's Tuesday Truths. Alrighty. So there has been some controversy about Ariel. Ariel, the princess of the Little Mermaid. So a couple of my co-hosts on Freeing Me podcasts, Dot and Fee, we've got a couple of segments, talking about this controversy, and I just want to continue the conversation today on Tuesday Truths. Please listen up, please tune in, and I hope this gives you something to think about and then also to pray about. So again, this is today's Tuesday Truth, and we're going to jump right in. We're going to be talking about Ariel, Annie, and Elsa. And if you see me looking away, I have a lot to share, so I'm referring to my notes. So again, let's just dig in. So we are continuing the conversation about the controversy of Ariel because she was cast as an African American this time. All right. So all of these princesses are fictitious, except for Annie, who really wasn't a princess, but because of the controversy surrounding the African American Annie, she deserves to be put in the princess category. So I'm just going to place Annie in the princess category. All right. So let me ask this question. What is so wrong with switching up the ethnicity of a princess or any kind of role? What is so wrong with switching up that role and putting a person of a different ethnicity in it? Okay, so let's get back to the princesses. So if either of these characters were cast in another ethnicity, excluding African American, like say Asian, Latina, Indian, Arab, or whatever, would there be such an uproar? Let's just think about it. Would there be such an uproar? So are you saying that African Americans don't deserve to be princesses? Is that what's being said? Because of this controversy over Ariel being cast as the Little Mermaid? Excuse me, Ariel, the Little Mermaid, being cast as an African American. Are you saying African Americans don't deserve to be princesses? What difference does the ethnicity make? Okay, let me give you some backgrounds on the princesses because I wanted to find out like who created the story and stuff like that. So Ariel, and I'm going to read from my notes. Ariel was based on the title character of Hans Christian Andersen's The Little Mermaid, but co-director and writer Ron Clements felt that the mermaid in the original story, was too tragic, and he rewrote the character, resulting in Ariel. Hans Christian Andersen was a Danish author. He was born in Odense, I believe that's how you say that, Denmark, which is part of Europe. Ron Clements was born in Iowa, and both of them appear to be Caucasian. That's what their pictures look like. Now let's move to Annie. Annie the musical is based on Harold Gray's comic strip, Little Orphan Annie, which itself was based on an 1885 poem originally titled The Elf Child. At the poem's third printing, poet James Whitcomb Riley decided to change its title to Little Orphan Allie to memorialize the real-life orphan that served as an inspiration for the piece. A printing error resulted in the work being titled Little Orphan Annie, thus birthing the name of one of the most pervasive characters in all of popular culture. All right, I have to keep changing positions here because this is good. All right, let's move to Elsa. And I'm trying to, got this big old hat on, but it's gorgeous though. So I'm trying to keep it, in the frame, which has nothing to do with nothing. So let me move on. Y'all know me. So we just talked about Annie, right? So I researched Mr. Whitcomb Riley's ethnicity. He was born in Indiana and he appears to be Caucasian. And although Little Orphan Alley, which was supposed to be the original title, was based on a real life orphan, do you think all orphans are Caucasian? There are African American orphans too. So what's wrong with us, African Americans, getting a little piece of the pie? But I digress. So let's move on to Elsa. Elsa is loosely based on the title of The Snow Queen, a Danish fairy tale by Hans Christian Andersen. The story centers on the struggle between good and evil as experienced by Gerda and her friend Kai. So with all that being said, the only character that was based off a true story, like I said before, was Annie. And as stated before, there are also, Annie was an orphan, and there are also African American orphans and orphans of other ethnicities as well. So, if a person of a different ethnicity had wrote the poem, Annie most likely would have been the same ethnicity as that person. And I'm just making the assumption because I've read a whole lot of other books. I've read whether they were fiction or nonfiction. These are fiction. And I haven't really researched a whole lot of authors, but there are some local authors that I know, and most of their characters are the same ethnicity as they are. But what's so wrong with switching it up? All right, let me keep moving. Hans Christian Andersen wrote The Little Mermaid and The Snow Queen, which is what Frozen is loosely based off of. And that's where Elsa comes from. She's in Frozen, if you didn't know. And that's most likely the reason, because Hans Christian Andersen is Danish, that's most likely the reason those princesses were the same ethnicity as Hans Christian Andersen, who is the writer. And if you look at his other books, all of his characters look like him. However, what is wrong with change? Change is not bad all of the time. And what's wrong with acknowledging other ethnicities? Just some questions to think about. I know a lot of you may disagree, but I don't care. This is my show, and these are my views. Okay, moving forward, can I share another person who was judged? Because that's exactly what we're doing, judging because of their ethnicity. Can I share this story with y'all? All right. So there was hatred between the Jews and the Samaritans. Israel divided into two kingdoms, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, and both were captured by Babylon. 70 years later, after the southern kingdom was captured, a remnant of 43,000 Jews were permitted to return and rebuild Jerusalem. The people who now inhabited the former northern kingdom, the Samaritans, vigorously opposed the repatriation and tried to undermine the attempt to reestablish the nation. For their part, the Samaritans, the full-blooded monotheistic, I think I said that wrong, monotheistic, there we go, monotheistic, for their part, the full-blooded monotheistic Jews detested the mixed marriages and worshiped their northern cousins. Now, the Samaritans and the Jews were cousins. But remember, the title was The Hatred Between the Jews and the Samaritans. So they detested their mixed marriages and worship of their northern cousins. So walls of bitterness erected on both sides and did nothing but harden for the next 550 years. That's a long time to hate your cousin, ain't it? I mean, that's generations and generations and generations of hate. So, when the next generation comes, then the former generation is telling them about, what happened in the past. So then more hate is spread, which is so dumb. But anyway, that's another story. So let me keep going. Jews had no dealings with the Samaritans. Remember that. Okay, so Jesus was a Jew. So after ministering, Jesus and the disciples left Judea and returned to Galilee. Jesus had to go through Samaria on the way. Jesus was tired. Now, this you can find this story in the book of John, the 4th chapter. I'm just, giving you a little synopsis of it. And I'm referring to my notes. That's why I keep looking away. Jesus was tired from the long walk, so he sat by Jacob's well. Along comes this Samaritan woman. So, she was coming to draw water from the well. Jesus asked her for a drink. So let's fast forward. The woman was a Samaritan and Jesus was a Jew. So they should not have even been talking. However, Jesus did not shun or dismiss her because of her ethnicity, nor her entanglements. And that's a whole nother story. But I just want to leave that in there. While Jesus was talking to the woman, the disciples, they showed up. They came back on the scene because they was off, getting some food because they was hungry because of the long trip they had made. So after the disciples showed up on the scene, they were questioning in their minds why Jesus was talking to this woman. Why was he talking to this woman? Now, they never spoke it. They were just thinking about it in their mind. But Jesus is Jesus, and he knew what they were thinking. Jesus didn't argue with or give an explanation to the disciples about what he was doing or why he was doing it. So I'm pretty sure the disciples felt some kind of way about Jesus talking to this woman who was a Samaritan. But instead of the disciples addressing it, they deflected and begged Jesus to eat. I mean, we deflect sometimes too when we're questioned about certain things, right? We do. And like I said, you can read the entire story of the Samaritan woman in the book of John, the 4th chapter. So can we just take a side note, like right quick, and then we'll get back, and then I'll end this. So the Samaritan woman was marginalized because of her entanglements. And I want you to read the story so you know what I'm talking about. But did anybody stop and ask why she was caught up in all these entanglements? Anybody? The answer to that question is yes, Jesus did. Jesus saw her, not just physically. He saw her soul. He embraced her. When you read the story, you will find out what kind of woman she was. And I already gave you a clue. She was, in some entanglements. But when you read the story, you will find out what kind of woman she was. But Jesus still embraced her. Jesus informed her. He told her all about herself. And most importantly, Jesus accepted her. He accepted her. He didn't care what her ethnicity was or what she was dealing with, what all she was entangled up in. He didn't care. He accepted her. So, again, y'all go ahead and go to the book of John, the 4th chapter, and read the entire story. So now we're going to get back to these princesses. But before I do that, I want to just read my last sentence about the hatred of the Samaritans and the Jews and how it connects with us. There are countless modern parallels to the Jewish Samaritan enmity. It's kind of like the Hatfields and the McCoys because they hated each other. Indeed, wherever peoples are divided by racial and ethnic barriers. I'm going to read that sentence again. There are countless modern parallels to the Jewish Samaritan enmity. Indeed, wherever peoples are divided by racial and ethnic barriers. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up. Now let's bring this back to today. We started out talking about Ariel, and the young lady being cast was an African American, and there was an uproar about it. People didn't like it. Don't really understand why. But let me just say this. We do not know what is in the mind of the directors or the producers. And the reason I say producers is because the producers are the one that pay to get these projects done or made. So if there's no money, then the project cannot be made. But can we consent to the fact that the directors made the movie the way they wanted to make it? Can we just consent to that? They made the movie the way they wanted to. And we really don't have a say about it. We really don't. We're not a part of what they're doing. We didn't add any money. We didn't give any money to pay for it. We're not the producers. So really, we don't have anything to say about what the directors do. If you don't like the way the movie is made, then don't watch it. Point blank. And that's all we're going to say about that. I just wanted to weigh in on Ariel, the little mermaid, and then I added Annie because Annie, we had a movie that was cast with a Black Annie and a Black Daddy Warbucks. And then I also recently saw an African American in the role of Elsa, and that's why I included her as well. But either way it goes, whether they're cast in they're white, Black, Asian, Indian, Arab, Mexican, whatever, Chinese, Japanese, I said Asian. Anyway, it really, really should not matter. Every little girl wants a princess that looks like her. Okay, that's all I'm going to say on that. Thank you all for listening, for those that'll listen now and those that'll listen later. My name is Juanita Williams. I am a purpose conduit. I am the link to Life Beyond Pain and the channel to Discovering Purpose. And this is today's Tuesday Truths. You all have a fantabulous week and an awesome-tastic day. And I will see you next week, God willing. Bye-bye now.